Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to the FCS Prep Podcast, where I'm your host, Dr. Keith Fairclough, and we are back at it again. We got two more emotions on the docket today. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about the feeling of being inadequate or feeling inadequate, right? And the feeling of disgust. We're going to be going over these two. You already know how it goes. We're going to talk about what the message is from each emotion. We're going to talk about the symptoms that you can feel or see or sense or notice. And we're going to be talking about how we can correct it, how we can answer it, so we can process it, get it out the queue, and give ourselves peace inside of our heads. All right. So before we go any further, you already know what you got to do. You got to go and make sure you hit that subscribe, hit that like, tell the algorithm that this is where you want to be. This is what you want to see. You want to see more of this videos, more of this content. The first one we're talking about today is the feeling of being inadequate. What is the message that feeling inadequate? What is that message that we're getting from that feeling? The message is that we need to change our standard or master our area. Let's say it again. The message that we get from the feeling of inadequacy is that we need to change our standard or we need to master our area, whatever that is. Okay? Because when we feel inadequate, we feel like we're not good enough. We feel like we're not doing good enough. We're not meeting whatever measure standard that's been set. That's what it means, right? And tied into that, just like we talked about in the last video and other videos as well, a lot of times emotions don't stand alone. So it's not just oh man, I feel like I'm inadequate and I don't fit in this area or I can't do it or whatever. It's not just that. That can jump into being sad. That can feel lonely. That could lead to frustration. That could lead to anger. That could lead to so many other emotions, hurt, right? So, and all these can actually combine and coalesce and come together and just be really bad. So what are the physical symptoms associated with this, right? What does it feel like, right? It could feel like a number of different things, right? So you could feel a little down. You could feel, like you want to stay away from social situations. It could kill your motivation because you don't want to try anymore. It could cause you to not want to make eye contact with people because you feel you're not good enough or you're on their level. It could lead to a lot of negative self-talk. You know, it could lead to what people have seen and experienced as imposter syndrome, right? So you see all these things, right? These are things and signs and symptoms of feeling inadequate. Like, I don't belong in this area, right? And simply your brain is telling you your standard might be too high. We might be trying to strive for something that may be a little too far outside of our reach, right? Or it might be like, no, this is where we want to be, but we don't have the skills or the prerequisites or whatever we need in order to be successful in this area. So now, what do, right? These are the feelings we got, right? We don't want to keep running away from situations. We don't want to run away from opportunities. We don't want to dodge eye contact. We don't want that negative self-talk. We don't want any of that stuff. We definitely don't want imposter syndrome, which I will go into a little bit more detail on that a little bit later in the video. How do we answer the message that the brain is telling us, right? The first thing you need to do is you need to check your standard, right? Is your standard too high? Is it unreasonable? Is it something that's attainable? Smarty goals actually fits in well here because Smarty goals help you to find out whether or not what you're striving for is even proper or good. Whatever goal you're trying to get is something that you can legitimately reach and go for and do. But if you're setting standards too high and it's not even realistic for you to achieve that, like if someone says, yeah, you know, I got to make $100 million, you know, by the end of the month, and they don't have any means to do so, then that is an unrealistic standard. That's way too high. Now, somebody else who might have the means, maybe a big time real estate investor or maybe, you know, some big business or Tesla or something like that, Apple, they could probably say, hey, we need to make $100 million by the end of the month. Why? Because they have the means, right? And so, and I'm not saying, I guess I'm just going to wrap this in here as well. You know, I'm not saying not to dream big. Definitely not saying that. We should be dreaming big. Even if it seems unrealistic, we should still be dreaming big. Absolutely. However, we also got to be realistic. Realistic in the sense of, I'm not saying you can't dream and think outside the box and like, man, I want to create something that's never been created before. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the example I just gave. Like, hey, I want to make $100 million by the end of the month. Do you have the means to do that? Do you have the scale to do that? Do you have the system to do that? Maybe you can create the system. Maybe you can have the scale later on down the line, but you don't have any of it right now. Probably not gonna happen. That's probably unrealistic. So if you don't reach that, it's like, dang, Let me give you another example. Maybe you're talking about losing weight, and maybe it's like, man, I gotta lose 100 pounds. I'm gonna lose 100 pounds by the end of the month. That's kind of unrealistic. Could you do it? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. But you'd be very, 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 very unhealthy, and you might not survive. So you see what I'm saying? Like, no problem with dreaming big. There's no problem with dreaming big. There's no problem with pushing the limits and pushing the boundaries. But if you're setting standards too high and they're unreasonable, then you're almost guaranteeing yourself that you're going to feel inadequate, like you can't do it, because you're setting bars that you can never, ever reach. Like, it's not possible to reach. And you may look and say, oh, well, someone else did that. Listen, I have a saying that stay in your lane, but watch how other people drive, right? We can learn from other people. We can get tips and strategies and skills from other people, right? We can do that. However, there are certain things that other people have in their, whether it's skills or whether it's, opportunities or whether it's relationships or whether it's, there's certain things that other people have, certain struggles they went through, certain things they had to go in the dirt to get that maybe you don't have. So for you to do exactly what they do may not necessarily work, but you can learn from them. The next thing is dream big. You can dream big, but just make sure your dream you have, that you are setting up standards and goals and markers to which you could actually make that thing come to pass. You can make the 10, 20, $30 million business. You could do that. There are ways to go about doing that, but make sure that it's something that you can do. You can set a system up in order to do that, right? Which leads me to the next thing is we're looking for progress, not perfection. I'm gonna say it one more time. We're looking for progress, not perfection. If we ever reach perfection, our lives would be completely and totally and utterly boring. It's the progress we make in life that makes it exciting. I'm getting stronger. I'm losing weight. I'm making more money. There's more intimacy in my relationship. My kids are doing better. I'm having degrees. I'm starting another business. I'm now owning houses. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm helping more people. Like, it's the progress that's so exciting. It's the best gift God has ever given us is the ability to make progress. I don't know if anyone's ever played a game, but if you ever play a game and you beat it and there's nothing left to do, you kind of get bored with the game. You might come back every now and then, a little nostalgia, but you're not going to have that same excitement. Oh, what's next? Oh, what's coming on next? Making that progress is what's so exciting. Having those challenges, jumping over those hurdles, that's the exciting part. So for anyone struggling with feeling inadequate, remember, it's not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about continuing to learn and to grow, to get better, to improve. That's what it's about. And now, the last thing, make sure you master your area. If your brain gives you this, and then master your area. Take it seriously. Read, take online courses, go to school, read books, audiobooks, watch videos, whatever you have to do to master your area. Practice, practice, practice. Learn, grow, listen, engage with other people, learn from them, take tips here and there. Listen, that is how you master your area. Grind and grind and grind, because again, I'm telling you, once you start to master your area, oh man, it's like sweet music. You ever seen those people, that are playing music and they go off and they just start doing their own solo thing with a guitar or a drum, or they're singing or whatever, and it's beautiful. You don't just get that on a whim. These people are feeling the music. They're in the moment. They're in the flow. Why? Because they put so many hours of practice in learning and watching and growing. They put so much in there. Now it's just a part of them. So now they just, whatever they feel, they just go. Right? It's the same. It's a beautiful thing. You see in sports. You see when people speak. You see it in all areas. You can tell someone who's mastered their area versus someone who hasn't. There's a strong confidence there that's just built in. And then on top of that, you must make sure you are teaching other people. Why? Because once you learn the material enough, and granted, I'm not saying you gotta know everything perfectly before you start teaching. You can start teaching basic things to people. Like, let's say you're learning about money. Let's say you're a finance person, you're learning about money. Maybe you don't know all the ins and outs, but maybe you've mastered one area. Maybe you mastered budgeting. Maybe you mastered that. Guess what happens now? When you start teaching people now how to budget, and then you're gonna get different situations, you're gonna get different questions. Now you're gonna start becoming even more of a master. Because now you're gonna answer this, you're gonna answer that, you're gonna see different situations. It's the same thing as being a therapist. I tell you what, how I am now in therapy is a far cry from how I used to be when I first started. Far cry. Why? Because in the beginning, I didn't have all the skills. I had the degree, I had the license, I didn't have all the skills. But what did I do? I started reading. I started applying. I started practicing. I started doing more and more and reading and studying and writing and reading and studying and writing and listening and watching. So now I've got to the point where I can hop into anything, any situation. I can just start flowing. I can start picking things out. Oh, yep, seen that. Oh, yep, seen that. Yep, that pattern right there. That way you're thinking. Oh, use this strategy. Use that strategy. Master your area. And the beautiful thing is when I say master your area, because I want to tie it back to the whole perfection. Just because you mastered your area does not mean you're perfect, right? Listen, even some of the best still make mistakes. So if you want to beat back inadequacy and feel like you're not adequate, master your area. Now I want to hop into imposter syndrome real quick. Imposter syndrome simply is when someone does not believe they belong where they are. They feel that they are an imposter. Maybe it's at work, maybe it's on stage, maybe it's somewhere, wherever, right? Let me tell you a quick story. When I was playing semi-pro football, really trying out, and I was listening to where these guys went to school, and I was, and they went to this university and that university, and this one used to play in the arena league, and this one did this, and this one did that. And I started to feel like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Like, who am I? The most I ever played was high school football. And I didn't even play this position in high school football. The most I ever played was like pickup games, right? So who am I to be around these gods among men, right? I'm like, wait a second, hold on. We're both on the same team. If these gods among men, we're both on the same team. So two things cannot be true at the same time in this case. It cannot be that I am on the team and I'm terrible, and I'm just garbage, and I'm just no good. I'm not worthy to be there, but yet they are. Or it's also not possible to reverse, that I am just so great and everyone else just sucks. Like, it can't be that. Either I'm on the team and I suck and everybody sucks, or I'm on the team and I'm good and everybody's good. Those are the only two options. So for anyone struggling with imposter syndrome, I need you to really stop and I want you to ask yourself that question. Does everybody here suck? If I suck, everybody here must suck. Or if I'm here and I'm good, everyone here must be good. But it cannot be I suck, they're good, or I'm great and they suck. It cannot be that. And however you answer that question, that's what you are. Now, if you want to believe everybody sucks and you suck, then well, whatever, right? Then everybody just sucks. But I can guarantee, because really imposter syndrome is everybody is so good and I'm not. So what you really need to say is everybody's good. And if everybody's good and I'm here on the team, then daggone, I must be good too. So I just want anybody struggling with imposter syndrome, remember that. Please remember that. And always, and this is for everybody, make sure whatever area you're in, you are mastering that area. Even if you don't feel inadequate, master your area. But we're going to hop in to the feeling and the emotion of disgust. Now, what is disgust? Disgust is when something does not meet a standard that we set. I'm gonna say it again. Disgust is when something does not meet a standard that we set. What are some of the symptoms or the physical symptoms of disgust, right? It could be a scrunched nose. It could be a gag reflex. It could be, shying away from something. It could be, any of those things, right? any of those things when it comes to disgust. We don't want to be around it. We might be condescending towards it, or we might be a little frustrated about it, and we might say little comments or be passive aggressive or things like that, or we might hold our nose or whatever the case may be, right? It's disgust. That's what the message our brain is telling us. Like, hey, there's something that doesn't meet our standard. Like, I know for me, I do not like a dirty house. I do not like a dirty house. I do not. And when I mean dirty, I use dirty and messy. They're separate. Messy is things are out of order, right? It doesn't stink. It's not nasty. It's not rats and roaches running around. It's just things need to be picked up and organized. I can deal with that. I don't like that, but I can deal with that. But if it stinks, if there's rats and roaches and it's just like disgusting, you got food molding and stuff. No. I don't mess with that. I don't deal with that. That is a big no-no. Now, and it could be also, I'll say this, the triggers for disgust can be physical, which is something that offends your five senses. It could also be mental, could also be emotional, right? So you might look at someone in a situation that's making some decisions that might disgust you. Like, for instance, and I'll just put this out here, men being proposed to by women. That disgusts me because my standard is you got to be a man. You got to be a leader, provider, and protector. You need to be looking out for your woman, right? The Bible doesn't say when a woman finds a man or when a woman finds a husband. The Bible says when a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing, right? So in any case, I'm not going to get on that. That's just me personally. That's one of those mental and emotional like disgust things. I just want to give you guys an example of that. So what do you do with this message, right? What do you do with the message your brain has given you? What direction do you take now that you receive this message? The first thing you need to check is my standard too rigid? Sometimes it might be too rigid. Someone might be like, if anything's out of place, it's disgusting. It's a filthy mess, right? It's like, okay, maybe that's a little too rigid, friend. Maybe. You have to ask yourself that, right? I can't tell someone what they think and what they feel, but, you have to ask yourself, is that a little too rigid, man? Can you change that a little bit? And if it is really rigid, what you need to do is you need to adjust to your situation, adjust to your environment, adjust to the context. For instance, to give you a perfect example, let's say you really got to go to the bathroom and you're at a gas station and the gas station bathroom is disgusting. It does not smell good. It is not clean. You are disgusted. You only have a couple of options. If your rigid rules like, nope, I'm not going to a dirty bathroom, you will probably pee or poop yourself, right? So what do you need to do? For me, what I would do, and I would hope everybody would do the same thing, is you got to adjust. I don't like using dirty bathrooms. I'm going to go in there trying to touch anything, and just use the bathroom. Maybe I'm going to, just use, paper towel to hit the light or whatever, right? What do? You make an adjustment, right? You're still disgusted, but you make an adjustment so you can operate in that situation. So that's the first thing. Check and see if your rule is really rigid. If it is, but you still need to operate in the situation, you need to adjust it accordingly, depending on the context of your situation or the environment. Now, the next part to think about is, as far as the direction to go, you need to ask yourself the question, is this something I can control or is it something I can't control, right? Because if it's something I can control, like for instance, the cleanliness of your house, then you need to create a system, a perpetual system that makes it so that standard is always met and you never have to worry about disgust. Maybe it's having your kids do certain chores. Maybe it's being a minimalist. Maybe it's whatever, right? Whatever disgusts you, right? And you have control over, create a system so that you don't have to worry about that standard not being met. That's the first thing. The second thing you have to ask, if it's out of my control, I have no control over this situation, right? If you have no control of the situation and it's something you cannot leave, then you're going to have to learn to accept it as part of your life. Maybe change how you operate in the situation, change how you operate in the arena, change how you do whatever it is you need to do. Make that adjustment because it's like, hey, this is just what it's going to be, right? And maybe adjust it so that maybe you're not as disgusted anymore, right? It's not as bad anymore. Set up certain barriers and things like that make it so that it's not as bad. Like it's just it's just got to be part of your life. The second part is separate yourself from it. If it's something that disgusts you, you can't control it, you can't set a standard, you can't fix it, you don't want to accept it, then you need to separate yourself from the thing that's disgusting you if it's not going to change. If it's a person, maybe they use a lot of profanity and a lot of nasty language, and you brought it up to them, you expressed your boundary, you said, hey, I'd really appreciate if you just don't talk like that around me. This is kind of offensive, I don't really like that. And they just keep doing it, then guess what you got to do? You got to separate that relationship. Why? Because they're not listening. They're not coming to your standard. You're going to continue to be disgusted. You're going to continue to be disgusted, and that disgust could possibly turn into other emotions as well. It could start turning into frustration or anger. That's how you handle disgust. Check your rule. Make sure it's not too rigid. If it is really rigid, then you have to make an adjustment depending on your situation, the context of your situation. See, is it something you can control or can't control? If you can control it, create a system that perpetually solves a problem and meets the standard. If you can't control it, accept it, learn how to live with it, or separate yourself from it so you don't got to worry about it, because whatever that thing is, it's never going to meet your standard. And so if you could leave from the situation, leave from the situation. Right? So that's it, guys. That's inadequacy, feeling inadequate, and that is disgust. I know this one was a little bit long. I apologize, but I kind of started getting going. So listen, I love you guys. I appreciate you all showing up. Listen, remember, like, comment, subscribe, share your thoughts about that. Is there anything that disgusts you? Is there anything that maybe you feel inadequate about? Put it down in the chat. Let's engage in discussion, right? I love you all. Thank you so much for always showing up. I appreciate you. We'll be back. I want y'all to have a great, awesome, and blessed day, and I'll see you next time.